Interface Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Hello friends, and welcome to Fairfield Today. I'm Paul Jackson. Thank you for joining us on a snowy day here in Lancaster and Fairfield County. We're glad you're with us. We're in the lobby downtown of the place that's got 125 years of banking that revolves around you, the Quasquacentennial Fairfield Federal. We're here in their lobby. More about that. We'll talk about what's going on with them. They're still celebrating even now into 2021 because of everything that went on. So anyway, you're glad you're with us, and pleasure to have with us as we move into another nice segment here on the show. The Lancaster Fire Department Chief, David Ward. Chief Ward, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. Good to see you.
And something I don't think we talked about, we're talking about how does it make this snow and the bad weather make your job infinitely harder in terms of fire and squad work?
Yeah, you know, the squad especially, fires too when it gets really cold, because then your hoses want to freeze up, and it's a kind of brutal that way. The slushy stuff that we're experiencing today is hard on the medics because they're carrying people out of the house and they're trying to get that cot to roll through the sidewalk. So
I guarantee you that doesn't work well.
No, it doesn't. It's kind of hard.
On a good day, it's difficult, but on a day like this, it's very difficult. You kind of have to pick, and those things aren't light.
Oh,
those
no.
These, we're talking about the ones with the motors and stuff.
Yes, they're heavy.
You're not going to pick those up and move them around. Not with a person on them, anyway.
No, they're heavy.
Yeah.
But they're fantastic to lift people. It'll lift up 750-pound person.
They're remarkable.
With a finger.
Yeah. Last time we had you on was pre-election in November.
Yes.
And everybody was kind of pins and needles. They felt comfortable, but nobody really knows. You know, it's an election, anything can happen. Well, the voters were good enough, in your mind anyway, to come through and pass some things that you were very passionate about.
Yes.
You, the mayor, city council, all the people, Paul Martin, everybody who had on, everybody plugged that and everybody talked about it, and the voters came through, supported that. That was really a big issue for your department, you and the police especially.
Huge in a lot of different ways. You know, we try to build a department with stability. Young people with children, they want to have a job. Most firemen want to come to a department and be there for their, just like anybody else. You want to be a career person.
Yeah.
And so with the instability that was being touted out there, we were losing people. In fact, we are still losing one. I'm losing one February 15th to a Franklin County department because of salaries and different things.
That hurts.
It does. It's
when you're trying to rebuild.
Yeah. And so this levy, passing that, I think will help us keep the great employees that we have, plus attract others. The last time we gave a test, we only had, Paul, 10 people sign up to take the test.
I've heard Paul Martin talk about that, it's shocking how few people try to do this. And that's got to be a big part of it, because this is a job long term. I mean, there's your future. But if you're not sure.
Right. It is a very tight market. Every department in Central Ohio is struggling to attract firefighter medics. 90% of our work is medics. So we are in a market, not with necessarily Zanesville, Logan, South and East. We're in the market against Columbus. So we have to attract, we have to offer packages that are attractive.
Yeah.
You have to offer stability. And so I think with the levy passing, we gave a test coming up here, and I think there were 25 signed up.
Very good.
So if we have 25, and if we can attract 7 to 10 that pass our qualifications, that's a great
5 years ago, 10 years ago, what number would have turned out for that?
2 to 300. Wow. 2 to 300.
Remarkable.
Different qualifications. You have to be a medic now.
Okay.
Before, you could just be like you walk off the street and take the test. Now you have to be a medic. It takes 2 years to become a medic. So we were becoming a training ground they would get their skill sets and go north.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. So, you know, we have all that going on in the middle of your trying to pass a levy. We've got the pandemic going crazy back in November. It's still pretty hot and heavy. Not that we're a little more slowed down now, but we've moved through that. We're now into the new year. And as you look back in 2020, you think you learned some lessons about how to run the department different? Or is that anything that, because what we're finding is most businesses had to make changes. Yes. Everybody had to adapt. You had to be flexible and do things, but I think most businesses found that some of the things that you were forced to do, you may want to do in the new year, as that hopefully goes away. Do you think you've learned anything?
You know, with us, we have to be there for the people. We can't work remotely. Now, there was a time last year where
you're not going to Zoom meeting.
You're not going to Zoom meet a heart attack.
Yeah.
So we were there. About 50% of our firefighters contracted COVID. Thank the Lord. It was very
50%.
light. Probably at least 30. We were at 63, so at least 50% of them had it. Thankfully, there was no real serious reactions to the COVID. Most of them said it felt more like a sinus infection. Probably since the vaccines, most of us at least half have taken the shots and have gotten the second shot already. We're not seeing as many COVID runs, and it's not hitting us like it was. So as far as what we would do differently, we allowed our office staff, the assistant chief at the time, and the 2 secretaries worked remotely from home. I came in, the guys came in, they did a fantastic job. You know, a lot of them have young people in their houses, and it's unnerving, but that's what we signed up for.
Sure.
So I can tell you that the sick time wasn't increasing necessarily. You know, with low staffing, you have overtime, but the guys came in, did a great job. We do not have training. One negative thing was we like to come together and do our trainings. Well, for several months, we did not have training together because of the COVID. We didn't want to expose each other to the COVID.
Sure. And now I know when people call, is that something they ask? If they would call 911, they need you, let's say for a paramedic run more than a fire, aren't they supposed to indicate to you that COVID is an issue if it is, and they know that?
Dispatchers are supposed to ask that.
Yes, so they're asked that.
They're asking that.
So you should know that up front. I'm sure that's not always the case.
It slips through, but the dispatchers do a great job. They'll tell us, hey, wear your PPE, personal protective gear, or COVID positive or whatever. So it works out pretty good.
So now the levy's passed and we moved in 2021, and you know things are changing now. You're trying to get people hired. You're looking at more financial issues. As you look back at 2020, was it a large year for you in terms of runs, in terms of things you had to do? Every year, as we talk to you, every year is bigger than the last.
Oh, this was not the case. I think the period from March, April, May, I think people were so afraid of COVID that they weren't calling us for everything. Now the serious ones, hearts and things, we were getting runs.
You saw a difference.
We were going from 35, 40 runs a day down to 10.
Wow.
So over the year, we were 400 runs short of EMS from 2019. So
really?
400 runs less in 2020 versus 2019.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And you think COVID was the reason? People if I don't need them, I'm not going to get anybody in my house that I don't know anything about.
Right, because they know we're on it every day. Going to these people. They didn't want them to come into their house. So good, bad, or indifferent, the runs went down.
So let's fast forward now to today. The levy's already passed. You're in good shape there. You're doing your best to hire people, attract good persons to the men and women to the Lancaster Fire Department. Other changes you're looking at now that you know that levy's in place, is that going to bring some other changes?
Well, a couple things we're doing. One, first and foremost, is personnel. We just hired one. We're interviewing 6 tomorrow. And so we're hopeful that they've passed the backgrounds. Now, what we do is we offer them a conditional job after we meet them, if we like them, if they meet the qualifications. And then they have to pass a whole battery of things on the backside. Polygraph, psychological evaluation, stress tests, physical, drug tests. And it takes about 4 to 5, depending on how busy the hospitals are, 4, 5, 6 weeks to get them on board after that. And invariably, if you have 5 people, 1 or 2 will wash out from the polygraph or the psych eval. So it's a very difficult thing to get on. So we're hopeful that they all pass, they come on board. That'll take us up to right now probably about 67. I've got 2 guys getting ready to retire, 3 guys getting ready to retire, and I'm losing 1 to another department, so it's almost like a wash.
Yeah, you get all the new people in, but you don't get ahead. You just kind of beat your feet in place.
But we'll get there. We'll get there this year. As far as we won't be too. Our magical number that I've told downtown is 83. That way we can put a 4th medic. What we'll do is we'd have 3 frontline medics, medic 1, 2, and 3, and then we would have medic 4 and tower 1, the big truck with the bucket, back up the medic. So what that'll do is we should never, 99.9% of the time, we should never have to ask for a mutual aid department to come back in the city. Years ago, they never did because we had enough staffing. So that'll help as far as quality of service. Another cool thing that we're going to be able to do, and we've been trying for 40 or 50 years. I've seen articles from 1970. You remember Lieutenant Tom Baker? You may have known Tom.
I knew Tom.
He was in the paper talking about when we get our next station. So 21 years ago, we did a study, and so long story short, the mayor is making this a priority where we are going to look at our runs and our heat data to see where the concentration of runs are and see how we can better serve and maybe try to go for land acquisition.
Well, that's the next big step, isn't it?
It is. Personnel.
Is that an area you're looking like 33 North? That
Part of that study 21 years ago said you have two options. You can build 2 new stations and vacate 2, like the west side, vacate the west side and vacate the hill, and relocate those to more.
Really make changes.
Yeah. Or the other option was to build a 4th station.
Yes.
Keep all 3, and then add a 4th station somewhere around the mall, or so we can service that area over there.
Because you have another hospital over there now, another ER anyway.
Exactly. And with Timber Top coming online, when you look at the heat data from the maps that the GIS department does, a lot of our runs are nursing homes, right?
Yeah.
So with that nursing home that's going to be going up in Timber Top, it's assisted living, nursing home, whatever I think it's going to end up being, that's going to increase that area. And we're already running a little bit behind there, 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes to get up there from Engine House 2. So I think for sure we need to have something over there. Now, whether council and the mayor decide that we want 4 stations or 2 new ones and relocate it, that would be up to them. But my goal before my retirement, which will be next year, is to try and identify some ground and see if we can make some movement on purchasing some ground.
Yeah, that's always the key is the groundwork that goes into.
Yeah.
Needing it is not enough.
Right.
We know we need it, like you say, we needed it 40 years ago.
Right.
And 50 years ago, maybe. And here we are still. And whether that means one new one or reevaluating the whole position now of anything, I guess that's all up in the air.
It is. It's an open book. So we'll see what the data says. We need a station that's probably 15 to 20,000 square feet so we can store our backup medics. Right now we have one that has to sit outside. Right, and it's plugged in, but in this kind of weather, so we need to have some place where we can house all of our trucks inside one barn. Mike Nixon has been fantastic over the years of allowing us to use his facilities, but they're full. So we're very hopeful that this comes off. Now, if it does, it'll take 3-4 years to probably happen, but we're hopeful.
A couple things that you mentioned before. You said 83 was the magic number for you. What's the number now?
Right now?
Yeah.
We're at 64.
Wow.
But with 2 guys soon to be retired, 1 guy leaving in 2 weeks, and then we have a 4th guy that's going to be retiring in July. So it's going to be right back to where it is.
Well, I see we have Dave Uhl waiting in the wings out here to come in. So maybe we'll ask the president of city council next where we go with this.
Word on the street, he has deep pockets. So you hit him up on that, and don't tell him I said that.
We won't say that, Mr. Uhl, that you said that. So a lot of changes coming up here. You got a big year coming up.
It's exciting. Everything is positive. I thank the citizens for passing that levy. I thank the mayor for taking the initiative to try and push this, because honestly, it's not a popular subject, the new taxes, but he came from he's a one-term and done. I think he's not going to seek re-election. He just came in to really make a difference, and he has. And being a CPA, he is good at the numbers. I was a student of his back in 1984. He will tell you that it's better I'm served as a firefighter versus
than as an accountant.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their niche.
I know.
Well, Chief Dave Ward with us from the Lancaster Fire Department. It's been an exciting time. Certainly, it's through last year we've been here with you, and you've talked about all the things that are going on. And the levy was up in the air. Now it passes, so we're moving into that, and here we are into 2021. A lot of changes.
Yep.
Fire department's moving forward.
We're having a great season. It's going to be great the next 2 years.
We appreciate Chief Dave Ward being with us. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Paul.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back with the President of City Council, Dave Uhl, in just a moment.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Fairfield Federal. When it comes to our customers and our community, we go above and beyond to help. Our people make the difference.
We were retiring from Tucson, Arizona, and we made a retirement trip out around Ohio, having decided that's where we wanted to be. And we came across this town called Lancaster, and we fell in love with the downtown area, where the fountain is, and the memorials, and the flags, and all the stuff. And we looked around, and I said, "There's our bank, right there."
There's something to be said about a community bank in your hometown.
Right. If you live in the community, you should do business in the community as much as possible. So it makes sense to bank with the community bank where you live.
Fairfield Federal is the bank to be at. If you live in this town, or any town actually, you want to bank at a local home bank. And the employees are happy here, they're conversant, customer service is through the roof. There's nothing more you could ask for.
Personal or business banking, whatever you need, we take it seriously because we know you do. Stop by today at any of our 3 locations and see why the difference is clear. Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan specializes in banking that revolves around you.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
We are back on Fairfield today. Thanks for joining us, and we're here in the lobby of Fairfield Federal, where again, expectation was not to celebrate their quasquicentennial into 2021, but a lot of people are doing things different now from how it was in 2020 versus 2021. So they're still banking that revolves around you in the new year, 2021. FairfieldFederal.com is the place for that. And talking about business as usual and people that had to make some changes, I think we've got the right guy in for that. David Uhl, President of Lancaster City Council. Chief, good to have you on.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here.
Good to have David Uhl on with us and talk about City Council. I guess we begin as I've done every interview with every person, no matter what it's been for the past, since we've come back in April of last year. What has been the impact overall of your job as City Council President? How has it affected you folks?
Yeah, well, there was an impact for sure on the city, and we can talk about that in a moment. I know you've talked with others about the impact. For City Council, there was an impact in that, once everything really shut down with the group our size, 9 council members plus myself, plus the administration, plus department heads, and then oftentimes the public, we had to shift how we did business, and the state government passed a law that allowed us to begin meeting virtually. That was never really an option for us before the legislative body had to.
And I'm sure nobody ever did that.
No, and that got extended into the new year as well. And so this summer we did, when things were kind of not going well with numbers, made that transition where we were meeting via Zoom, and we still have members from time to time who, for whatever reason, can't be there, and they still have the ability to call in telephonically and be a part of the meeting, and none of that was possible before. And it may not be possible in the future, but during COVID, the state government realized that we had the business of the city had to continue forward, and the legislative body is the core of ensuring that happens. And so we did have some Zoom virtual meetings that were completely open to the public. They could watch and see everything that was going on, which was the requirement from the state government. So that certainly had an impact on what we did. We are back in person now, but with limited capacity in council chambers. And so we can only fit probably 15 or so people
with the distancing.
Yeah, that's right. And many times those seats are taken up, at least initially, by department heads who are required to be there to provide insight on what legislation is being passed. And so, but it's still available online. And so you can watch online, you can watch on Spectrum. There are many ways to access and see what's happening in the room, even if you can't be in the room.
Obviously the preference and the requirement was to hold your monthly meeting, to be there, to be in person. If COVID were to end today, would you still consider any of that Zoom meeting stuff, or is it always going to be here on out, as long as it's physically possible to be there live?
Yeah, the state government is likely going to, that law will end.
Just put it up there for a time and...
Yeah. And so once everything's back to at least more normal and we're not so concerned about crowds, then we'll likely not have the opportunity or ability from a legal standpoint to meet virtually. It will be back in person.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the COVID, about the effect that it had on the city, unemployment, things. It had to have an impact on monies and things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it sure did. When we were trucking right along January, February, and into March, and then when everything shut down, you can just look at the numbers and see unemployment, skyrocketed.
Pick out the day it happened.
Yep. And so April and May were, because oftentimes there's a lag of about a month or so in unemployment numbers. And so for us, we really saw that impact April, May, June, and then we saw it begin to decrease. And so today, for January, I think we're at 4.9%,
right?
Which is, in the midst of everything that's happening, not bad.
Yeah, was it much different
Double
before or
digits.
after?
Double
It got
digits
up to
after.
double digits.
Yeah, I think it was 10-12 here in Lancaster, and back down to 4.9, and so that's good. That still means there are a lot of people not working yet, but
do we think the trend is?
It's continuing to decline, and so I think that as more things open up, and as we're seeing at least right now in the news the last few days of numbers going down.
Ohio's looking. Yeah. Compared to maybe some other places in the country, when I hear the governor speak, the 21-day average or whatever they call that, the rolling average, is improving each day, actually.
Yeah, so our expectation is the economy is going to follow along with that, and that's the hope. But there was an impact there. There's an impact on city services as well. I know you talked with the fire chief, and the reality is that we had a number of safety forces who were on the front lines who contracted COVID.
The chief said 50%, maybe up to 50% of his force contracted. Not always were sick,
Right.
but I mean that's an impact.
It is an impact, and it's an impact on our ability to provide the service. It's an impact on overtime when people have to cover for other people to ensure the right number of staff who are on, and so certainly there was a significant impact on personnel. Another impact was on our utility department. There was a moratorium where people couldn't be shut off for not paying, and they took advantage of that moratorium, and so utility collection was lagging way behind, and continues to work to catch up today as we move forward. And so just unprecedented things that no one, no matter what industry or organization you're a part of, experienced before, and that's true for the city as well. There's been a significant impact.
And something that you're used to this by now is the election season's coming up. It happens every year, every 2 years, every 4 years, and we're on that season again now where everybody's getting petitions out there. Things have to sign up. People come, go, they retire, they move on. Things happen. Much effect on your job down there at the city council?
So it is election season, and all 10 members of City Council are up in this year. And so petitions were due February 3rd. Petitions were due. And so when we know that everyone's up, petitions were being circulated.
You'll know who's in, who's out.
On the 3rd, we would know. And so the reality is that for someone who's running at large, so there are 4 at-large members, 3 who are part of the legislative body, and then the president of council. We can get anyone in the city to sign our petition, and we need 50 good ones.
Yeah.
But where we see a significant issue is with our 6 ward council people.
Has to be somebody in their ward.
That's right. So
50 good ones.
They need 25 good ones. So you want to get 50 to make sure you have enough. And they had a difficult time getting people to answer the doors because it can't just be everybody like it is for at-large. And so I know several people running for a ward council seat who had a challenging time getting their petitions finished. So there's that impact all around of COVID and people not wanting to be, we do the whole delivery thing, and we select to leave it at the door. We're not talking to you, you're not talking to us, and so it's just a different way of doing business here.
So I guess the only thing constant is change.
That's right.
and again, new faces, and you'll again after when you get all the numbers in from February 3rd, you'll know at least who's in the mix.
Yeah, and we know a lot of them.
Sure.
Surely not everyone contacts us. I try to meet with anyone who's interested and wants help through the process.
Yeah.
That happens to be on the same side of the spectrum that I'm on.
Sure.
Politically from the Republican side of things, and so we know that there's someone running in the first ward if petitions clear. So there's the submitting the petitions, and there's the Board of Elections certifying them.
Yes.
And if no one has
those are big hurdles.
Yes. If no one has issues with their petitions, then we would see someone running in one against Melody, who's a Democrat. And then all around the table, we see a couple of new faces, a new Republican running in the 5th Ward where Holly Miller Downhour is currently. Her name's Christina Kreitz. And then Jennifer Sitterly running at large. I think Norman Hall is elected not to run, and so we're trying to make sure we have 3 solid people in that spot: Don McDaniel, Corey Schoonover, and now Jennifer Sitterly. And so at least 2 new faces that we know of, and
guaranteed.
Depending on, I think Pete Sanderell may be challenging Becky Tiener in her position, so we may even have a primary this May as we go forward. Oftentimes we'll all kind of just move to the general election without a primary opponent, but we may see a primary challenge this May. We'll have to see what shakes out.
That's politics for you, isn't it?
That's right.
As you indicated, the chief was just on, Chief Ward from the fire department. We talked about what a big impact the levy was on, because we talked with everybody pre-November, and we talked to some of them post-November on that, but that's had a major impact on moving the city forward.
Yeah, it sure has. You know, when 80% or so of your general fund is allocated out to safety forces, that's not really any more money to do anything with the rest of the city with. And we have to have those safety forces, and we need more safety forces, and we know that we're not paying competitive wages for our safety forces.
He said sometimes it's almost like a training ground here. They get on here, and then they get it, and then bang.
And that costs us a bunch of money in training that person, and them leaving, and then training the new person. And so we have to get our wages more competitive.
Retention.
But we can do that now because the safety force is passed. And so we can't say thank you enough to the citizens of Lancaster. You know, there are oftentimes when you have a levy like that complaints, they're just threatening safety forces. They need to cut other places. Yeah. But when you look at the budget and 80% go to safety forces, there's nothing else to cut. So we were so pleased, and we know we need more, and there are more in the budget this year. I think 4 each, new fire, 4 new police, and you say, that's it? Over the next couple of years, there'll be at least 4 more in each one of those years. And the reality is that it takes forever to onboard someone, to recruit,
to onboard,
indicating to train.
That, like just saying, okay, we need 4 people. Well, they won't be here tomorrow.
No, they won't. And and it's only because that levy passed that we're able to move forward. It's only because that levy passed that we're able to look at our wages and say, how is it possible that Groveport pays more to their police officers than we pay here in the city of Lancaster? We've got to fix that, or else we're going to continue to lose officers to other cities and
in many cases, these are people that have been here quite a few years and think, why do I need to do this? Why not? It's for my family, for my future.
And that's understandable. You know, again, there seems to be from time to time with certain people a thought that, government workers, we have to pay competitive wages. We have to pay market rate wages, or we're not going to retain people, and then we're not going to be able to provide the support and service to the citizens of Lancaster that they expect and that they should receive. And so I can't, again, say thank you enough to Brad and Jen and everyone who worked so hard to move that levy forward in November. And because of that, it lessens the burden on the general fund, because we now have these dollars dedicated to safety forces, where we can do a few other things that have needed to be done as well that weren't even on the radar a year or 2 ago because the dollars just weren't available.
I've got about a minute left. I guess that's all part of this salary review thing that's now going on, and these are the kind of questions you'll be looking at.
Yeah, and in particular, we're starting with non-union, non-management employees for the city to make sure that we're paying competitive wages. Then we'll jump up to non-union management. And then when it comes to the bargaining units, our safety forces and the 4 unions that we have in the city, they'll bargain and work their way through what those contracts will look like over the next few years. I can tell you that one of the contracts that we just negotiated was a 5% increase over the next 3 years. And again, that's working just to get wages up to about where they need to be. And so again, we talk, that's a huge raise. I don't get a 5% raise. Wages are lagging way behind in the city for our safety forces, and we have to fix it.
And just a quick comment here before we wrap it up. You're losing a good man. A friend of mine is retiring here at the end of the month, Bill Burrows, with the sanitation department. He's been there a long time, come up through the ranks. He's the head guy now. And, there'll be a change in there, but I just wanted to give Bill a shout out here because I've had him on when the new containers were coming on. And Bill's, as you know, more than most, Bill's a matter-of-fact kind of guy. He'll pretty much tell you how it is, at least how he sees it. So you're losing good people, and you got to keep that moving.
That's right. And we have to be able to, retain or attract the talent we need to keep stuff going. And, you know, again, I know we're running out of time, but quickly, you know, Bill and the toters was a big deal.
Yeah.
Bill and the compost there are certain things that happened in the last couple of years
Yeah.
that Bill worked really hard on. And
Had
so
a lot on his plate.
Yes, he did.
Anyway,
And,
speaking a lot on his plate, President of City Council David Uhl with us. David, thank you for joining us. We'll get you back on here as the year moves on, and we know there's a lot of changes going on, and they will continue to change.
Yes, they will.
Good luck.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. David Uhl with us, and David, of course, is again the President of Lancaster City Council. Appreciate him being on with us on Fairfield Today.
Interface Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.